Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're going to take a little departure from the kind of general tone of what we usually do on this channel, talking about Warhammer 40k, and go a little bit meta with it in a way, and talk about actually, preparing for your first game of 40k, because for some people it can be very easy. For some people it can just be a simple case of, well, my friends play it, I decided to start playing it. I have a group of people around me who know me. They know what I'm like, they know my personality, they know the army that I'm playing. They've helped me with getting into the hobby. And for those people, actually, the first game of 40k tends to be quite a, nerve-free experience. At least that's my experience of it. Anyway, I got into 40k because my friends were into 40k. And so when it came to actually playing for the first time, I could mess up as much as I liked. I could get rules wrong, I forget what I mean, to be honest, I still do that now. I have the memory of a man 3 times my age, and given I'm 31, that means I have a 90-year-old's memory. No, it's really bad. I cannot remember shit about anything. So, you know, when it comes to the starting 40k amongst a group of friends, amongst a group of people who know you, it's not too bad. You know, it can still be a little bit nerve-wracking in a way. You never want to be that person who sits there and goes, hang on, let me check the rule book. Again, I'm still the person who does that. But you can get away with it. You can get away with it without feeling too awful, without feeling like you're wasting people's time, without feeling as though the people you're playing with are going to end up disliking you because, well, these are your friends. These are the people who got you into it. The problem comes when you have someone who is just not surrounded by that kind of atmosphere. The person who starts 40k because they see things about it online, whether they watch videos, whether they see pictures, whether they've heard of 40k before but they just never quite got round to collecting it. It can be a big deal actually going out and having your first game against people who you don't know, against people who you've never met before. And I feel like I'm in a fairly decent position to talk about that side of things as well, because whilst I did have, a good number of games under my belt before I started playing for people who weren't just my friends, there was an element to it that made things quite tricky, even years and years ago. I have a fairly long-standing, I was going to say relationship with, but that's probably not the right term, issue with depression, which I've spoken about on this channel before. If you're new to the channel, you may not know this. I haven't really talked about it a lot recently. I have in the past, because I feel like if you are in a position to talk to people about it, you don't have an obligation to, but it helps to. I did used to think that if you are in a position where you're comfortable enough to talk about your mental health issues, you should, but that's not fair, because there are those who don't feel capable. And judging someone for not talking about something that personal and just that personal is something that shouldn't really be done. So I'm of the opinion that if you're comfortable with doing it, and if you feel you can make some sort of impact or make it so that you can show someone that they are not alone in feeling the way they feel, then go for it. So in a way, that is kind of a bit about what we're going to talk about now, because alongside depression, which is just something I've had an issue with for a long time, 10 years plus, I missed a lot of school due to the anxiety that it turns out was brought on by depression, even at a fairly young age, like 15, 16. Along with depression comes the classic side effect of anxiety. And I have really terrible anxiety quite a lot of the time. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, what the fuck are you talking about? You are literally making videos on YouTube. How can you have anxiety and do that at the same time? Honestly, I have no idea really how this has happened, how this has worked. I sometimes wonder whether it's the fact that what I do right now, talking into the microphone, into the webcam, and it going on the internet, I feel as though maybe because it's almost like a step removed. I'm not going into a room full of people. I'm not going in and seeing, row upon row of faces. I'm not going into a room of a bunch of people who are sitting there specifically just to listen to what I'm saying, because I can't do that. I'm physically almost completely incapable of doing that. It's too it's just too scary. It locks me up. The idea of doing it makes me feel anxious. This is different. I mean, essentially, I record this stuff, I edit it, I upload it, and then after the fact, I will sometimes sit there and be like, oh my god, like, thousands of people have watched this, what the hell, and have that moment, but that happens after the fact. That anxiety, though, made itself well and truly known the first time I went to play 40k against people that I didn't know, because there was a local group, which I've talked about before, the fact that in my town there was a wargaming group that was primarily Warhammer 40,000. There was not really much else in the way of other games going on, a bit of fantasy battles here and there, but only between two of the members. And I will never ever forget the sheer level of uselessness that I felt going in and playing against someone I'd never played against before. I can't even remember what army they had. I can remember that I was playing my Necrons, I can remember that, but I can't remember what army they had at all. I've got no clue. All I remember is putting all of my models on the board, sitting there, building the list, putting everything down, and immediately forgetting what everything did. Literally everything. It was a case of, okay, I've got my warriors. Oh no. Oh god, I've forgotten the stats for the warriors. Keep picking up the codex, frantically leafing through. Okay, I've got that, I can remember that. What does the monolith do again? It was literally just all information was immediately wiped from my brain. And I felt really bad. Understandably so, because, you know, when you have those moments of just being like, oh, what the fuck am I doing? I can't remember a damn thing about this. What am I doing here? You naturally think to yourself, well, this person's not going to want anything to do with this. They're going to think I'm an idiot. They're going to think I'm some sort of moron. I'm just standing here looking through the codex at the most basic stuff. They're just going to be like, oh great, what a waste of time. But a lot of that you'll feel, a lot of that kind of initial nervousness, that moment of, oh, I've forgotten everything, this person's going to hate me. A lot of people are in the same boat. It's not actually as big a deal as you think it is, and a simple statement like the one that I made at the time, I can still remember, like, all those years ago, so many years ago, just saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I haven't played anyone other than friends, I'm just a bit nervous. The response was not, oh, well, get the fuck out. The response was not, there's the door, leave, or the dude just said, it's alright, take your time. That was it. That's all he said. Now, he didn't say, good, I'm really glad that I get to sit here and watch you struggle through it. He didn't say anything particularly supportive, even. He just said, it's alright, take your time. And I did, and that game probably took longer than it should have done. Truly, honestly. I suspect that game took far longer than he thought it would. But at the same time, that first experience, that first game, no matter how long it takes, is one that you're always going to have if you want to actually play Warhammer 40,000. You could be sitting there on top of 5,000 points worth of Guard, or Space Marines, or Tyrannies, or whatever. You could be sitting there thinking to yourself, I really want to actually use these. But if you don't take the first step to have a game against someone, they're just going to sit there. And whilst it is an entirely reasonable and I think entirely valid part of the hobby, the collection process when it comes to Warhammer 40k, if you actively want to play the game, you will have to have that initial experience of going to someone and saying, I've never played before, is that okay? Now, depending on where you go, you might get different reactions. Sadly, not everyone in this world is understanding. Not everyone is empathetic or sympathetic. Not everyone's going to sit there and be like, okay, it's this guy or girl's first ever game of Warhammer 40,000. I will do my level best to make them comfortable. I will do my best to explain rules if they've misunderstood. If they make an error, I will point it out in a tactful manner. I mean, I'm pretty sure, let me see if I can remember now. There was one specific thing I got horribly wrong. I'm pretty sure I took a unit of Necron warriors off the board, put them through the monolith, and then they came out full strength, or something along those lines. It was something like that, which at the time, in like 3rd edition, was not a thing. You know, I did something that was completely wrong, and I was pulled up. I was pulled up in actually quite a nice way, because he just went, do you want to just check the entry for that ability again? Something in the back of my head says that's not how that works, but I don't play that army. I've only played against it a few times, but do you want to just check? And of course the onus is on me to then check and fess up when I got it wrong, which I did. But it wasn't confrontational. It wasn't a case of, you screw that up, fix it. It was, I think that might be different to what you've done. Phrasing like that actually goes a long way if you're dealing with a new player, rather than going, yeah, you fucked that up. Instead it's, can you double check that? It's a lot easier. Not everyone's going to be like that, admittedly. There are so many tales of like horror stories, like terrible first games, people being that guy and doing their best to just, get one over on the new player. But those are not as common as you think they are. They are stories that are negative in nature, in my experience, get a lot more traction than ones that are positive in nature. Because it's very easy to overlook someone just behaving normally. When it comes to having your first game of 40k, having someone who is just talking to you like they would talk to anyone else, who is just playing how they would play anyone else, who is interacting with you in a way that has nothing to do with the fact that you're playing the game for the first time, that doesn't really make for that much of a memorable situation. You might remember someone getting out of the way to help you, and you will definitely remember someone who's being overtly negative towards you, someone who is doing their level best to screw you over. But when it comes to just a standard human interaction, well, we go through those hundreds of times a day, and they are frankly incredibly forgettable 99% of the time. And so it'll be for a lot of you when it comes to your first game of 40k. It's not always going to be something that you remember, something that's massively significant, something that makes you sit down and go, that was a life-changing experience. Sometimes your first game just goes okay. The person you're playing is just alright. You might not get on with them massively well, but you might not get on with them either. You might have your couple of hours with them, and then you go your separate ways, you never speak to them again. But at least you've had that first game. And the thing is, there's things to do to prepare for it if you are particularly anxious, if you do have anxiety, if you are really worried about seeming as though you're not prepared, seeming as though you are a full-on, just new person who is going to make their day miserable by interacting with you. The chances are you will immediately forget things like your unit profiles. It happens. Hell, it happens to people who've been playing for years. I cannot still remember which buff it is that the bloody Primaris Ancient and the Lieutenant has, because they're similar buffs but they're different. I can't remember which one's which. I have to check the book every single bloody time. It happens to everybody. Not everyone has got a photographic memory. More people have not got one than have it, funnily enough. If you're worried about that though, it's incredibly easy to make it so that that information is readily available to you. You don't have to go out and buy the cards and whatever. You can make your own. You can easily produce stat blocks of your own, where you just have a printed sheet of paper. Maybe you don't need to look up every single unit in your codex or index. Maybe your army is quite simple in its composition. Maybe you've just got a bunch of Primaris Marines, one captain, and one unit of aggressors, in which case you can leave a significant chunk of the unit profiles behind. You don't need them. So just take those, or just bookmark them. I'm not joking, massive big bookmarks might look weird. You might look like a right sort of forgetful old whoever sitting there with your index or your codex with like 8 bookmarks sticking out at different angles with what you've got them like marking written in huge marker. But it's a damn sight quicker than going to the back of the book and checking what page it's on first, or the front of the book. I'm thinking D&D. No, D&D's front of the book. Whatever. It's a damn sight quicker than doing that. And it's all about streamlining and making yourself comfortable. That's the other thing as well. If you go in and you are honest and you say, this is my first game of 40k, I've never played this before, you might, if you're incredibly unlucky, get someone going, oh, there you go. And that'll probably be the grand total of it. You're not going to get someone being an outright arsehole to you. You'll get someone being a little bit impatient. But the thing is, they have also had that experience. And so you might sit there and think to yourself, oh, I don't really want to put this person through the inconvenience of doing it. It's them or it's someone else. And if you are that concerned about wasting time, if you're that concerned about making the experience unpleasant for someone else, there's a lot you can do to prepare for it. Bookmark your codex or your index. Create data cards for your stuff if you don't have them. Print out the profiles for units that you use and ignore that section of the book if you need to. If you know what weapons you've got on your units and you want to make sure that you only really need to look at what those weapons do, then again, create some sort of stat block for them. Bookmark that part of the page. When you're going through the rulebook, familiarise yourself with all the core stuff, but if there's something that you just can't quite get, if you forget it, if you go back and you think to yourself, no, I can't remember how that specific thing works, again, just bookmark it or note it down somewhere prominent. No one's going to take the piss out of you for being over-prepared. No one is going to take the piss out of you because you have walked into like a Games Workshop store with bookmarks in your codex, the rules that you keep forgetting and you know you keep forgetting marked down. No one is going to sit there and go, oh, what's that? You've actually decided to make sure you know what your weapons do. Ooh, no one's going to do that. No one's going to care. Everyone has had their first game, and there's a lot you can do to prepare for it. The most important thing is not to let things like anxiety stand in the way. It's not to let fear of letting someone else down get in the way. This is a hobby whereby it grows by people being accommodating. It grows by people actively making the effort to get other people involved. To do that, you just have to take that first step. And the first step's always the most difficult one, because the thing is, you'll have your first game. You'll have it, and you'll be like, well, that went okay. And you might not have another one for a couple of weeks. But you'll never have that stress of it being the first time again. You'll never have that pressure of it being the first game again. You'll never be that worried about letting down a stranger again. Because you've already been through that, you've already done it. It's literally only up from here. One of the biggest things that I see a lot of is people who want to play this game, but deciding that they can't because they don't have anyone to play it with. If you go to like a friendly local game store, if you go to a Games Workshop store, you're not going to find people there who don't give a shit about 40k. You're going to find people there who love 40k. You're not going to find people who don't want to play the game. You're going to find people who want to play the game. And a surprising number of people are completely accommodating to those who are playing for the first time. A surprising number of people will go out of their way to help those who are playing for the first time. Anxiety when it comes to interacting with strangers is something that a lot of people deal with. And it's an understandable thing that a lot of people deal with. Not everyone can be 100% confident after all, and just go after whatever they like all the time. That's not how the human brain works for a lot of people. But 40k is supposed to be enjoyed. It's supposed to be a social experience in a way. It's supposed to be, yes, a competitive game, but at the same time, it's something that requires two people. You are one of those two people. You can be one of those two people. You just have to take the first step to do it. And no matter how anxious you get, how worried you get, how much you get concerned that you might screw it up, everyone screws it up. Literally everyone. People in tournaments screw it up. People in tournaments forget the rules. People who've played this game for 15 odd years will get things wrong. You are not alone in that. People will forget what certain units do. You are not alone in that. And people will get incredibly anxious about playing even people that they know. And you are most definitely not alone in that. So if you want to actually start playing this game, if you're sitting on a pile of models that you want to put to good use, if it's something that you have wanted to be involved with but have never quite got round to because you're too worried that you're going to mess it up, don't be. The vast majority of people don't give a shit how nervous you are, they just care about playing the game they like. That's all that should matter to you as well. That was a lot of rambling. Anyway, I hope in some way, to some of you, that was at least a little bit helpful. And yeah, if you've got any sort of advice, any ideas, anything that you think could help those who are a little too, well, a bit too anxious to actually go out and play 40k in person, leave your tips and tricks in the comments below. After all, the more people play this, the better it gets. That's just how it is. So yeah, leave your nuggets of wisdom in the comments. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. There's the usual array of links to click, a couple of videos, Patreon, subscribe, all of that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.